Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about 3 explanations of terms that some people get confused. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut in principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. We have a couple episodes here where we do quick one-word explanations for Catholic doctrines, and even though that really has nothing to do with this, but it is just an episode that should be under 5 minutes, where it's just a quick explanation of 2 terms that some people get mixed up. So let's get to it. What's the difference between a Monsignor and a priest? A Monsignor is an honorific title given to a priest, normally upon the recommendation of his bishop. And the term is an honorific, and it's bestowed upon the Pope. And normally this is given to a priest that's been a pastor, and it's been a pastor for a long time. And so it's an honorific title. It doesn't give him any special responsibilities or special duties. You can continue to be a pastor if you are a pastor at the time. Sometimes this is given to pastors that have been considered very good pastors. Upon retirement, they might give them that term Monsignor. And it's just a type of priest, similar to kind of how a cardinal is still a bishop. It's an honorific title that allows them certain privileges, like being in the conclave if they're of a certain age. A Monsignor is a priest. It's just a title which literally comes from the Italian for my lord. And it's just an honorific title given to a priest. Now, what's the difference between a basilica and a cathedral? A basilica is a church that's given a special designation. A cathedral is essentially the church of the bishop. So every diocese, of course, is run by a bishop or an archbishop, and that is his church. Cathedral comes from the word cathedra. We know the word ex cathedra from the chair, so it literally means chair. We normally think of ex cathedra from papal infallibility and so forth. But it's his church. So in most cities, the cathedral is either going to be the oldest church or the nicest church, or the oldest/nicest church. Sometimes it's not. You've seen towns, I can think of Houston, where I grew up, LA, who have a new cathedral the one in LA is just a monstrosity. So you've seen these new cathedrals that have been built, but historically, they're normally the most beautiful, what we would call traditional looking basilica style. I know what I mean here, basilica style, I mean like Constantine, like the old Roman style of churches that we had for 1,000 years. A basilica is not a cathedral. A basilica is just a church that's given a special title, special honor, special designation. For example, in San Antonio, where I don't live that far from San Antonio, there is a basilica for the Little Flower, because in that church there is a relic of the Little Flower. And so it's a church that has a special honor. But it's not the bishop's church. The bishop's church is going to be the cathedral. And there can be co-cathedrals. For example, in Houston, it's the Diocese of Galveston-Houston, because Galveston was the older town. So in that case, there is a co-cathedral in Galveston, the beach city, and then there is the cathedral in Houston. So you can have co-cathedrals. The last one is, what's the difference between a schism and a heresy, or a schismatic and a heretic? Okay, so a schismatic is someone who refuses the authority of Rome. It's essentially someone who refuses to submit to authority. So a classic example of schismatics would be the Orthodox Church. They refuse to recognize the authority of the Bishop of Rome. Henry VIII, when he left Rome and he became the head of the Anglican Church, as we would call it, now, he was a schismatic as well. Now, a heresy, we have an episode here on the difference between material and formal heresy. A heresy is when you deviate from the deposit of faith or the magisterial teaching of the faith. So we've had a lot of heresies throughout Catholic/Christian history, going back to, I mean, really, you can go back to the first century with, let's say, the Judaizers, but the Docetists, the Donatists. You have later on the Arians, and then much later on you have the Jansenists, and we've had a lot of heresies. they deviate, they change the theology to something that is not typically considered to be in the deposit of faith. Of course, the most famous heretics would be the ones of the 16th century with Calvin and Luther and Zwingli and so forth. Also understand with heretic, a heretic can only be somebody who was baptized Catholic. So you can't call a Protestant a heretic. You can call Martin Luther a heretic, and you might have seen some videos here where I call him an arch-heretic, because he was a Catholic. In fact, he was an Augustinian priest. So if they were born and have the sacraments and were Catholic and then start to preach things that are against the contrary to the teachings of the faith, then you can be then a heretic. But if you were not born a heretic, sorry about the sun coming in, they were not born Catholic, then they can't be really considered a heretic by canon law. Can you be a schismatic and a heretic? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can look later on with Henry VIII and later on with Martin Luther when he started teaching sola fide and sola scriptura. So these are just some quick answers. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.